Part 143. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Ixie. Chapter 1421. Chapter 1421. Yewei teases the Lee family and his wife. Yeziwei spent a busy day with Yezikin. It was very uncomfortable to work overtime during the Saturday holiday, but thinking about the amount of income after completing the transaction, it was worth the pain. She finally had time to look at her phone. Before, she would also pay attention to the messages on her mobile phone. She also knew that there was a call from another city and there were 3 missed calls. Dr. Ying had told her in advance that Li Peiner's parents were coming to the city. She estimated that this number belonged to the Li family and they were close to each other. Wait until you have time after get off work in the evening before calling. Mother Li followed the trace all the way, and finally saw a familiar figure in front of the cinema. A phone call stopped them in their tracks. Li's father and Li's mother immediately answered the call when they saw the qualified call back, and heard a nice young woman's voice coming from the call. Li's father and Li's mother faced each other and made gestures, with Li's father finally answering the conversation. Hello. Hello. I am Yewei. What are the 3 phone calls you made? Hands-free was on, and yes, only self-introduction was enough for the Li family and his wife to hear it at the same time. Father Li took a deep breath and said, "Hello, it's me who made the call. Well, I want to ask, do you know Li Peiner?" Li Peiner. Yewei read out the name, deliberately prolonging the sound at the end. The Li family's couple's hearts were lifted. Just when they were anxious, Yewei gave a positive answer, "Li Peiner, I know you." Great, Father Li and Mother Li breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Well, we are Li Peiner's parents. We want to see her. Where is she? Really, do you have any proof that you are Peiner's parents? What more proof is needed? We are the one. That won't work. My family is different from ordinary people. We can't leak information easily. If you can't provide evidence, then there is no need for us to continue talking. Goodbye. Yewei spoke at a natural and smooth pace, and his serious lines frightened the Li family and his wife. As soon as the two heard that she was going to hang up the phone, they quickly shouted, "Wait. If Peiner answers the phone, she must be able to hear our voices." "I'm sorry, Peiner is not with me now." "Then aren't you trying to make things difficult? How can we prove it on the phone?" "Then this issue is not something I should consider." Yewei simply hung up the phone. Her tone was very good from beginning to end, so good that it made people feel itchy but also felt helpless, as if they couldn't reach out to hit the smiling person. She just deliberately made the Li family couple laugh, but she felt sorry for Li Peiner in her heart. These 2 people obviously wanted something from her, but they still used that tone. It was simply disgusting to hear their tone when they mentioned Peiner. Isn't Peiner their biological daughter? Why is she being called around like a maid? The Li family couple looked at the page where the call was hung up and stamped their feet angrily. What's wrong with this guy? He doesn't believe what we say. Hey, don't worry. Haven't you seen that the rich people on TV have great ostentation? The more careful she is, doesn't it mean that she has money? Father Li feels that only rich people can show off. Thinking about it this way, I feel much better. Li Peiner has indeed climbed onto a high branch. Maybe they can use this to gain more benefits. Let's wait until night and continue calling her. We'll wait until Peiner is here. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Ixie. Chapter 1422. Chapter 1422, Protecting Sister. But they never expected it. Seeing that there was a lot going on in the cinema, the Li family ran directly in to get a seat. The 2 of them planned to sit in the cinema and wait for it to close. An hour and a half later, Yezhiruo, Li Peiner and others came out of the cinema. "Wait a minute, I'm going to the toilet." "Good." Yezhiruo handed her satchel to Li Peiner, and Li Pan'er and Ye Qingfeng were waiting for her outside. "Brother Ye, let me get some for you." This is the third time Li Pan'er has reached out to help Yezikin share the burden. It wasn't enough, Ye Qingfeng still refused. "No, it's very light." Li Pan'er is too reserved when living under someone else's roof, and cannot be as casual as Yezhiruo. Ye Qingfeng said that he didn't need it just because he didn't need it, and it had nothing to do with saving face. The couple from the Li family were sitting in the corner. Mother Li suddenly stood up and said, "I'm going to relieve myself." Li's mother was heading towards the toilet, and Li Pan'er just walked over, and several people bumped into each other face to face. Li Pan'er couldn't help but widen her eyes when she saw Li's mother. And when Mother Li saw Li Pan'er, she deliberately rubbed her eyes, thinking she had seen it wrong. In Mother Li's impression, Li Pan'er should be wearing old washed clothes with a loose ponytail tied casually, and she doesn't look energetic. Now Li Pan'er is wearing a clean and brand new pink rabbit ear plush jacket, a skirt, and velvet leggings on her legs, and plush mid-length short boots on her feet. This is the only kind of outfit that Ye likes in winter, because she herself is a person who wears various skirts for 360 days a year. So Li Pan'er's outfit is Ye's only arrangement, but it is different from Yezhiruo's color style. Not only did she wear a new look, she even tied her hair into two ponytails with shiny hairpins. All in all, she had a very cute little lowly style. It's just that her clothes and hairstyle are easy to change, and the skin color on her face has not changed much in a short period of time. After all, she doesn't want to go out and put on makeup. If it weren't for the still thin and dark face, Mother Li would really not be able to recognize her. "Pan'er!" Mother Li shouted uncertainly, and Li Pan'er's mouth trembled. "Mom, Mom!" Her shout shocked the Ye family brothers and sisters next to them. "Mother!" Yezhiruo blinked and raised his eyes to look at the roughly dressed woman in front of him. "Unbelievable! Pan'er, it's really you." Mother Li grabbed Li Pan'er's hand tightly as if she was afraid that she would run away. She immediately turned back and shouted in the direction of Li's father, Old Li, come and see, I've found Pan'er." Mother Li's rough voice echoed throughout the cinema hall. Everyone around them looked over. Yezhiruo and Ye Qingfeng frowned, but the troublemaker, Mother Li, was still unaware. Ye Qingfeng gathered all the handbags in her left hand, and suddenly stretched out her right hand horizontally in front of Li Pan'er, looking at Li's mother. "Auntie, please step aside, you are blocking our way." Li's mother didn't know Ye Qingfeng, but she saw that the two young men standing with Li Pan'er were well dressed. She suddenly thought of what Dr. Ying said about everyone who stayed overnight and was very rich. "Oh, you are the kind people who helped my Pan'er, right?" Mother Li put on what she thought was an amiable smile in front of them. "Little." Yezhiruo pulled Li Pan'er back to him and said, "Let's go." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1423. Chapter 1423. Those are my parents. Father Li and Mother Li, who hurried over, stood in front of them at the same time. Yezhiruo and Ye Qingfeng showed no signs of weakness. "You two, if you don't give way, we may have to call in security guards." "What's wrong with the security? We've seen our daughter." Father Li stretched out his hand to pull Li Pan'er back, but Yezhiruo and Ye Qingfeng's tacit hands blocked Li Pan'er's way. Father Li and Mother Li were very lifeless when they saw these two young men protecting Li Pan'er, and their smiles became brighter and brighter. These two look like rich people at first sight. The better they treat Li Pan'er, the greater the chance of making money. Father Li and Mother Li felt as if they were seeing golden steamed buns when they saw the Ye family brothers and sisters. "Pan'er, tell them quickly, we are your parents." The Li family couple is anxious to get Li Pan'er to admit his identity. Lee Panerjan bit her lip and lowered her head without saying a word. Lee Paner's reaction obviously made Lee's father very dissatisfied. He was used to scolding her, but now he directly forced her with a commanding tone. Lee Paner, didn't you hear what I was talking to you? Are you deaf? Father Lee's words immediately made Yezhiruo and Ye Qingfeng's faces look even uglier. Yelling people like this in public, you can imagine how bad he treats Lee Paner. It turns out that no matter how miserable Dr. Ying's words were, they were never true without personal experience. Yezhiruo even felt Lee Paner's shoulders shaking. They, are mine. Just when Lee Paner was about to tell the identity of the two people according to Lee's father's wishes, Ye Qingfeng held the person to his side domineeringly. You dare to scare people in front of me, you really don't know what to say. With just one eye contact, Yezhiruo had already summoned the security guard. Two uniformed security guards rushed over, and there was no need to ask any more questions. Yezhiruo spoke first. Some people are making trouble in public here. Please ask them to leave so as not to disturb the guests inside. Yes. There was no need for proof at all, the security guards just drove the Lee couple outside. The Lee family couple went crazy. Hey, what's going on with you? I want to take my daughter away, but you have arrested the wrong person. Let us go quickly, I'm looking for my daughter. No matter how noisy they were, the two security guards used brute force to drive them out. You just listen to a little girl and arrest people randomly. The police station doesn't care. I want to call the police. Little girl. Do you know who the two people you just offended are? Go away quickly. If you make trouble again, don't blame us for being rude. You know, Yezikin is a shareholder of the cinema. Let's talk about the friendship between the Ye family and other families. If we calculate them together, they occupy more than half of this prosperous business district. Who dares to provoke those two young ancestors? Besides, it's not a good thing to see those two people looking vicious. Even strangers would choose to believe Yezhiruo's words. The Ye family couple were kicked out, but Lee Paner's mood was about to collapse. She has been trembling since she saw the Lee couple, which shows how scared she is. Yezhiruo comforted her. Paner, it's okay. Let's ignore those people. Can my sister take you to the park to play some games? Yeah, sister, yeah. Hey, I'm here. Just now, those just now were, my father and mother. Lee Paner stumbled to finish the sentence. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lou Kixie. Chapter 1424. Chapter 1424. The cold night is the only one. What happened just now happened in an instant, which made her a little unable to react, but the moment she saw Mother Lee Paner knew that she was leaving. Okay, it's time to go home now, Mommy sent me a message. Yezhiruo deliberately avoided the topic and left with Lee Paner in hand. The atmosphere between the three little guys also became a little heavier. They did not go out through the gate just now, but chose another way. But when he reached the door, Lee Paner suddenly stopped moving. There are some things that don't need to be explained clearly, everyone knows it in their heart. No matter how bad Lee Paner's parents are to her, they are still her biological parents. Now that her parents have come to find her in person, how can she go back to Ye's home with Yezhiruo and the others with peace of mind? Yezhiruo couldn't handle this matter completely rationally, so he had to leave the trouble to Ye Wei and make a phone call. Mommy. 10 minutes later, Ye Wei arrived here. Lee Paner took a step back very sensibly and thanked them seriously. Thank you Auntie Ye, thank you Sister Ye, thank you Brother Ye, and everyone in the Ye family. My parents came to see me, and I came soon. I'm going home. Ye Wei asked her, don't you plan to play more time? Yezhiruo quickly agreed, yes, your body has not fully recovered, how can you give up halfway? Lee Paner shook his head, as if he had made a decision in his heart. Her life here is like a beautiful dream. If it continues, she will be uncontrollably addicted. A person cannot adapt to poverty after staying in a comfortable life for a long time. Although she likes it here very much, she has always recognized her identity. Stay here, I will be nostalgic. Ye Wei hesitated for a while, smiled and patted her shoulder. Okay, I understand what you mean. This seems to be an agreement to let Li Pan'er leave. Yezhiruo was not very happy after hearing this, and took Ye Wei's mobile phone to act coquettishly. Mummy. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Ye Wei turned around and saw her daughter like this, and was very happy. Look at your little mouth, you can even hang a kettle. Stop talking to you. Okay, I have my own plan. Yes, only words stabilized them. Ye Wei asked someone to invite the Li family's couple back. The Li couple were still waiting at the gate just now. They were invited over now. As soon as they saw Li Pan'er, they rushed forward and pulled the person to their side. Mother Li was very dissatisfied with what had happened just now, but she was embarrassed to say anything when she looked at the richly dressed people in front of her. Are you the ones who took my daughter away before? I think you made a mistake. It was not us who took your daughter away, but our kindness in saving her life. Mother Li couldn't help but frowned when she heard Ye Wei's tone. She just saw the two young children looking closely at Li Pan'er. Why did this adult seem a little indifferent? Well, you helped Pan'er. Logically speaking, her father and I should thank you and your family. Oh, that's not necessary. Now that you have found her, Li Pan'er will be returned to you. What happened before is just for me to accumulate good fortune for my family, so there is no need to worry about anything. Li's mother and Li's father looked at each other, suddenly not knowing how to answer Ye Wei's words. They originally planned to use Li Pan'er to gain access to the rich, but now it seems that's not the case. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1425. Chapter 1425. Mom, let's go. No, 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 Pan'er is our daughter. Since you have helped, we must be grateful. In order to keep Ye Wei, Li's mother ignored her words. Ye Wei seemed to be hesitating, and nodded after a while. Okay. The Li family and his wife were delighted. Then how about we talk somewhere else? That's right, this is not the place to talk. Look, my child's father and I have just arrived in S City. We are unfamiliar with the place and can't find a place to stay. You locals must know more about this. Otherwise, where can you tell me where to go? Mother Li's explicit hint: she just wants Ye Wei to find a place for her. Ye Wei smiled and joined the topic naturally. That's right. As a local, you should help. I know a good hotel. You can check in and rest directly after eating in the restaurant. Do you want to introduce it to you? Here, staying in a hotel. Yeah, I wonder if you have brought enough money. Oh, it's okay, it's all done by credit card now. As soon as the Li family heard this, they understood the meaning. It turned out that they were not invited to live in a big house, but they were asked to pay for a hotel stay. Then how could they agree? Yeah, MRS, yeah, right? We are not going to the hotel. What do you think? I don't know the rules of you city people, but when we go to other people's houses in the countryside, we always stay in the rooms of relatives and friends, and then prepare a table of meals at home. Oh, Ye Wei nodded, as if he understood. Yezhiruo added a question in time, but your home is not here. It seems that you can't invite us, right? Mother Li said shamelessly, our family is not here, and your family is here. We are all relatively cheerful people and don't pay much attention to formalities. If MRSA doesn't mind, we can go to your home to cook for you, just consider it a thank you. Father Li agreed, yes, this guy in my family is pretty good at cooking. The three members of the Ye family were really speechless when they heard this. Are these people too thick-skinned? Yes, only reply to them was another smile. Our family is not one that can be entered casually. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, MRSLI. She doesn't mind being a cranky lady today. Not only the Ye family were speechless, but also Lee Panner couldn't bear to listen. She tugged on Lee's mother's sleeve and whispered, "Mom, let's go home." She really didn't have the face to face the Ye family. But how could Mother Lee hear her words? At that time, he dragged Lee Panner to the back and said, "You kid, what are you talking nonsense about? Didn't the teacher teach you how to repay kindness? If someone helps you, you must remember to thank him." At this moment, Lee Panner almost cried after hearing these words of justice and awe-inspiring words for the Ye family. After living for 14 years, she is no longer the child who still had expectations for family affection when she was a child. She didn't need to think about it to know that the purpose of the Lee family's parents was not really to thank the Ye family for her, but to use her to gain power and wealth. If there was a hole in the ground, she would want to dig into it immediately. Lee Panner bit her lip, tears already filling her eyes. She asked again, "Let's go." In the end, Father Lee pushed her directly behind. "Go, kid, don't talk nonsense if you are ignorant." Seeing Lee Panner's petite body being pushed, Ye Wei almost couldn't help but rush over and pull the child over. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lou Kixie. Chapter 1426. Chapter 1426. Let Panner go to Ye's house to steal things. Hands clenched into fists, and finally held back. For shameless people like the Lee family and his wife, your sympathy will only become their weakness in blackmail. Lee Panner will eventually go back, so if the Lee family and his wife know that they are so good to Lee Panner, they might do something. Forget it, we are guests from afar. Since you and your family have come to S City and are so destined to meet us, I will be my host and ask you to have a rest for the night. After the sun rises tomorrow, you can do whatever you want. You guys. Ye Wei asked someone to find an ordinary hotel for the Lee family and his wife to stay. However, after the formalities were completed, Ye Wei said that he wanted to take Lee Panner back to Ye's house on the pretext of packing his things. Before leaving, Lee's father grabbed Lee Panner and said he wanted to explain a few words. Ye Wei let her in. Ye Wei and her two children were waiting outside. Ye Qingfeng kept a cold face and felt more and more alienated from Yezikan. Yezhiruo's emotions are running rampant today, but they are just bad emotions. She still couldn't fully understand Ye Wei's approach. "Mommy, do you really want Panner to go back with you tomorrow? You don't know how hateful those two people are. They yelled at Panner in front of us. Also, when I spoke just now, I was not polite at all and even pushed others, so you can imagine how miserable Panner was at home." "I know. You know, then you. Ruruo, after all, Lee Panner is a stranger to our family. I am willing to save her life just for your sake, but it doesn't mean that I have to be responsible for her future, okay?" Mommy, Yezhiruo would be confused if he cared about her, and it was even more difficult to accept hearing such words. Ye Wei turned his back to her, not wanting to argue with her anymore. Yezhiruo was unwilling to give in. "Mommy, obviously you." Who knew that this time even Ye Qingfen would not stand by her side, and even shouted in a stern tone, "Ruruo, shut up. Elder brother. Lend me your cell phone." Oh, Yezhiruo pursed her lips and handed the phone to him. Ye Qingfen quickly typed on the screen, and then handed it to Yezhiruo to read. "The night is like a sudden enlightenment." She took a deep breath and let it out. "Well, since you are all like this, I have nothing to say. Yezhiro dropped these words and ran downstairs. Ye Qingfeng slowly followed. At the corner, Mother Li retracted her neck. She just overheard the conversation between the three people in the Ye family, and she also heard that only Yezhiro in the Ye family missed Li Panur, while the other two felt that Li Panur had nothing to do with them. This is tricky. Li's mother hurriedly returned to the room, where Li's father was still instilling some ideas into Li Panur. Panur, the Ye family is so rich, can you just take a few things? Dad, I can't take anything from Ye's house casually. How many things can you take secretly and no one knows? But it belongs to someone else. You silly kid, why don't you listen? Don't you think it's hard for me and your mother to come all the way here? Is it so hard to get you to pay back the things you have? I'm not asking you to steal them. Li Panur listened to Li's father's increasingly shameless words and really wanted to hit him to death, get rid of him, or even be used by others. Why do strangers want to save her, but her biological parents only know how to use her? Dad, I am your daughter, why are you forcing me like this? Mom, this is not how other mothers treat their children. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lou Kixie. Chapter 1427. Chapter 1427, got sick and went to the hospital. Dad, I am your daughter, why are you forcing me like this? Mom, this is not how other mothers treat their children. She finally said the two words she had been holding in her heart for a long time. At this moment, my eyes were full of tears. When she was in the countryside before, she couldn't understand why other children were loved by their parents and elders, but she was the only one who was beaten and scolded. She thought for a long time before she came up with a reason, because their family was the poorest, and other children's families seemed to have a better life than theirs. She didn't know if her understanding was right, but she could only find this reason to comfort herself. Later, she heard some things told to her by her brother Du Hung next door. Sometimes she would watch TV at the neighbor's house. When she saw the parents in the TV series doting on their children, she was really envious. She has a pair of parents but is worse off than those children without parents. Finally, when she grew up and left the countryside to see the city, she met people from the Ye family. She also understood a lot of things during her time at Yejia. It turns out that parents in the world treat their children in countless ways, but the only thing that remains unchanged is that they love their children very much. She is probably one of the 10,000 unfortunate people in the world. Everyone in the Ye family told her to be strong. Only when she was strong would she not be bullied. But maybe she was used to being oppressed in a weak environment for a long time and didn't know what resistance was. Today I finally asked my doubts. I'm your biological daughter, right? Why have you never given me any love from my parents? I don't ask for much, really. I'll accept it even if you beat or scold me. As long as you sincerely treat me a little bit, I will do it. I'm very happy, but why are you so selfish and stingy that you don't even want to show me any compassion? Unprecedented, Li Painter asked loudly. Her quarrel really frightened both the Li family and his wife. Father Li and Mother Li were beating drums in their hearts. Li Panur waited and waited, but still didn't get their answer. Li Painter bit her lip, turned around, opened the door and ran out. Yezhiro, who was still waiting for her outside, only saw a figure running past quickly. She stretched out her hand and couldn't catch either figure. Panur, Yezhiro shouted. What's going on? Ye Qingfeng handed everything in his hand to Yezhiro and quickly said, take it and wait for me. He immediately chased her out, but luckily he was fast enough and caught Li Painter's hand as he was crossing the road. Li Painter turned around inadvertently, and Ye Qingfeng saw clearly the tears on her face. Suddenly I felt a sting in my heart, and even my breathing became heavy. Li Painter's teeth were trembling. Before she could say anything, her body suddenly sank. When Ye Qingfeng noticed something was wrong with her situation, Li Painter could no longer stand up. She only knew that she pressed her palm against her heart and cried out, it hurts so much. Ye Yiwei and Yezhiruo, who were chasing after them, were so frightened that their hearts beat faster when they saw this scene. I couldn't wait to send Li Painter to the hospital, and this time he went directly to the emergency room. How did that happen? Her disease has not been cured, and her mood swings will also be affected. I just saw her crying. Yezhiruo was confused and angry. What did the two Li family members say to Panner inside? Ye Qingfeng suddenly took out an earphone and said, listen. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1428. Chapter 1428. The Ye family gives up on Li Painter. Snort. Are these two still human beings? They are worse than beasts. When Li's father brought Li Painter into the house, Ye Qingfeng put the monitor in Li Painter's bag with lightning speed. So all their conversations in the room were clearly recorded in the recorder. Yezhiruo said angrily, I said, those two are not good people at all. If Panner goes back, he will definitely suffer. Ye Qingfeng asked back, then what are you going to do? Just the person over. Yezhiruo curled her lips and didn't expect how to answer the question. Ye Qingfeng's tone became a little cold, and his attitude became much more distant. He said, everyone has his own life, and we are not saints and cannot take responsibility for all the poor people. But we met Panner. Brother, you obviously like her too, don't you? Yezhiruo's mood became a little excited. Ye Qingfeng held her shoulders and forced her eyes to meet his. Yezhiruo, you need to be sensible. Looking into his eyes seriously, Yezhiruo took a deep breath and said slowly, I'm sorry. She will not make trouble unreasonably. There is a certain tacit understanding between the brother and sister. If it is difficult to control their emotions, they must not be reckless and must work hard to restrain themselves. So, can we just let Panner go back? That's not the case. Neither of their families meet the conditions for adoption. To take Li Painter away by force is to rob someone, no matter what the reason. Anyway, there will be a solution. Li Painter's sudden illness was just due to a moment of emotional excitement, and she got better after resting. This kind of disease that cannot be cured is very troublesome. After the Li family learned that their daughter had been admitted to the hospital again, they tried to delay the treatment. As a result, a nurse came to remind them to pay the fee the next day. When the Li family and his wife heard this, they were shocked. Are you sure you want us to pay? Please find out clearly that someone paid for my daughter's hospitalization. They thought Yejia would take care of everything. Isn't it a daydream? Even after getting up in the morning, no one from the Ye family showed up again. The Li couple were anxious. What should we do now? Just wait a little longer. I don't believe they just let it go. But those people are already urging us to pay. What should we do? Can you pay for it? Just wait until someone from the Ye family comes to pay. The two people discussed it over and over again, but in the end they still acted rogue. Li Painter could not lie peacefully in the ward. She sat up and changed into regular clothes, put away her things and walked out. She found the Li family and his wife in the corridor. Dad, Mom. The Li couple turned around and saw Li Painter walking slowly towards the side, and were very confused. Why did you come out? Li Painter lowered his eyebrows and spoke in a very calm tone, I heard what you said. You don't have to wait any longer. People from the Ye family won't come. Let's go. The Li family's couple always felt that the way she looked was a little different from before, but they couldn't describe the feeling clearly. Mother Li simply pulled her to the ward, teaching her as she walked, you silly kid, just go back and lie down. Don't worry about other things. They were afraid that Li Painter's trouble would ruin their plan. Li Painter was walking halfway when she suddenly stopped and refused to continue walking. What's wrong with you? Mother Lee asked doubtfully. Lee Painter bit her lip and said, it's time for us to go back. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lou Kixie. Chapter 1429. Chapter 1429. Panna returns to the countryside. Don't talk nonsense. Go back and lie down for me. Please don't do this again. They don't owe us anything at all. On the contrary, I want to repay the favor. Looking at Lee Panna's serious look and serious expression, Mother Lee suddenly smiled, but it was a sarcastic smile. Oh, you girl, your wings have grown hard after spending a few days with people in the city? You even learned how to do that. Are you arguing with us? Father Lee, who followed, roughly grabbed Lee Panna's thin arm and took her away towards the ward. That's it, get in here right away. But Lee Painter was holding onto the door panel and refused to go in. Lee's father habitually raised his hand to hit others. A passing nurse stared at them and stopped their rude behavior. However, Father Lee did not forget to warn her, be careful. Don't think that I won't dare to hit you because there are many people outside. If you don't obey me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Facing the threat, Lee Painter still stubbornly refused to obey the arrangement. Her heart felt chilly now, and she was getting tired of hearing those cruel words hundreds or thousands of times. Lee Painter suddenly looked up at him and said boldly, if you want to fight, just beat me to death. Then you will no longer be able to benefit from me. The sudden increase in momentum startled both the Lee family and his wife. It's not that I was scared because I was timid, but I was shocked that Lee Painter said such a thing. Shouldn't these words come from the mouth of the resigned Lee Painter? How dare they slap that slap now? Father Lee's hand raised in mid-air slowly lowered it. Yasuhiro, who was hiding in the dark, couldn't help but smile when he saw this scene. She finally saw the changes in Lee Painter. Even if she goes back in the future, she won't be the same as before, right? And they have already thought of ways to help Lee Painter. Yu Wei came forward to negotiate terms with the Lee family and his wife. They were willing to bear all the expenses for Lee Painter during his schooling and gave the Lee family and his wife 1,000 yuan each month. When the Lee couple heard that there was 1,000 yuan, their eyes flashed with gold and they nodded in agreement without hesitation. Okay, no problem, we will do as you say. Ye Wei sat there as steady as a mountain and observed the expressions of the Lee family and his wife. Everything was developing within her control. Of course, the benefits are not free, I still have conditions. MRS yeah, just tell me if you have any conditions, and we will definitely agree, no matter what the conditions are, as long as you have money. Ye Wei pretended to be casual and said, originally I have no time to care about your family's affairs, but my daughter Yasuhiro is kind-hearted and wants to help Lee Painter. As a mother, I don't want to see my child disappointed, so I have no choice but to follow her. You make this deal? The Lee family couple hurriedly echoed, yes, we know. Thank you Miss Yes kindness, thank you Madam Yet. But I heard before that you beat and scolded Lee Painter. The child was almost dying if she didn't have enough food, clothing, or warmth. She is not in good health now. Being tired, suffering or angry can induce the disease. At this point, he paused slightly and said, I'll start with my ugly words. The 1,000 yuan in welfare you received is all because of Lee Painter. If something happens to Lee Painter, I will stop supporting your family. Do you understand? This sound should be a little forced. Does this mean to tell them that from now on they will treat Lee Painter as their little ancestor? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lou Kixie. Chapter 1430. Chapter 1430. The promise of building a snowman is always there. Winter has arrived, and it has snowed even in S City. It snowed like this after 3 years. It's so beautiful. You can see the silver frost all over the ground when you open the window, and the landscape covered with white snow is also very beautiful. I heard from Panner that it started snowing very early there, and I wanted to take some time to go and have a look. I didn't expect it to snow here this year too. Now, it has been a month since Li Painter returned to the Li family. Yet Xingfeng searched Weibo and saw the exact time the snow fell. It fell last night, and it's so thick. I'll go to the backyard to have a look. Yasuhiro suddenly remembered something and slipped to the back garden with cat-like steps. She did not run out the door directly, but watched from the window. A black figure stands in the white snow, forming a corresponding color with the surrounding snow scene. That figure is busy in the snow, and the snowman on the snow is already a half-finished product. Wow! Yasuhiro exclaimed in a low voice, with a smile on his face and eyes. One thing she has known since she was very young is that whenever it snows, her dad will build a snowman. Because it rarely snows in S City, they can only see it almost every 3 or 4 years. Because of the large time gap, as they grow older, they have different levels of understanding of what Yezikin did. When they were very young, they thought their father also had a childish heart and liked to play with making snowmen. As they get older, they will know, it turns out that their father builds snowmen just to please their mother. But just when it snowed heavily in City's last time, they had already understood the story of the snowman more deeply, that is, deep liking and love. Yet Xingfeng also slowly came to her side. Yasuhiro was lying on the window edge, looking outside, and spoke softly to Xingfeng, "Daddy, when he was very young, he promised to build a snowman for mommy every year when it snowed, and he always did. It hasn't changed, it's really affectionate. I will also find someone as good as Daddy in the future. Why, are you envious? But after all, men as good as me and Daddy are rare in the world. If you want to find them, you'll have to wait a long time. Brother, you are obviously just praising Daddy, but you still don't forget to be narcissistic. You are really naughty. Tisk, I'm telling the truth. You should be happy for your future sister-in-law. She will have such an excellent and dedicated husband." Future sister-in-law, wake up, you don't even have a girlfriend. There's nothing I can do about it. People in the school. The talented and beautiful young lady has a bad temper. She has a good temper, but the hardware can't keep up with me. What do you want me to do? I am also helpless. Speaking of which, there is still no encounter. To a destined person. When you meet someone you really like, you will understand that all shortcomings are advantages. Yasuhiro couldn't help but shiver. Hey, don't forget that you are still a junior high school student, okay? Falling in love now is puppy love. This makes me laugh. Yet Xingfeng always has something to say. What kind of early love is this? Look at mom and dad, I am late in love. Yasuhiro. What you say makes sense, but I am speechless. Stop looking, get ready to eat and go to school. Oh, it's not good to let people look forward to it. Because of the cold winter, the school temporarily cancelled morning self-study classes, and they deliberately went to class a little later. Yasuhiro rubbed his hands and let out a sigh of relief. Immediately, Panner's identity is about to be revealed. End of this chapter.